Broncos country. Let's cry. Thursday night football. Boy, if you thought watching us was depressing, you shouldn't have watched Thursday night football, to be fair, though. But you probably did because we all hate ourselves.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. But not as much as Russell Wilson hates everybody around him, apparently. Or even Matt Ryan not losing fumbles. That was probably one of the worst games I've ever watched in my life.
You would have thought this was a Halloween night type matchup, with Halloween being on a Monday this year, Austin, because they were giving the ball away like it was candy. This game was terrible, absolutely god awful.
And like every time you thought they were going to score in the red zone, technically they scored by field goals, but it just neither team did anything. And we keep saying like, oh, Matt Ryan in his new offense, Russell Wilson in his new offense. One of these guys are, going to get right? And they just haven't. It's been sad to watch. Like you look at Matt Ryan, 26 for 41, 250, 0 touchdowns, obviously, 2 interceptions. Russell Wilson went 21 for 39, 274, 2 interceptions. And one of those interceptions probably should have been on a run play. When you probably should have just ran the ball and not thrown a pick to tie the game, basically, after they went down the field on you. Like, people say that, like, Nathaniel Hackett's going to get fired. It's not going to happen. I think he finishes the year regardless. But, like, the expectations are so high. Could we really see him out after a year?
My problem with Nathaniel Hackett isn't so much him as a person. It's his track record. I don't believe offensive coordinators are built to be head coaches a lot of the time. It's one thing if you're an offensive coordinator that is paired with a head coach that doesn't have this already predetermined established quarterback at your disposal. Like Brian DeBull currently is a really good example of this. He was the OC throughout the time we've seen Josh Allen's ascendancy to being a superstar in the league, and I get it. Josh Allen is he's not an archetypal like stud quarterback. He's different. He's not somebody that is just brought up due to coaching. He is a freak athlete. He is an outlier. But with Brian Daboll, who's now coaching in New York, I do believe in his coaching style. He can coach up quarterbacks. He doesn't need this all-league, all-world talent to actually implement his offense. With a guy like Nathaniel Hackett, he had Aaron fucking Rodgers making him look great over the last half decade. And look at Adam Gase. The writing is on the wall. You look at any offensive coordinator that has come out of New England since pre-Josh McDaniels, like it makes a lot of sense. Matt Patricia, he sucked. It's just the way that it works. If you have a generational quarterback and a coordinator comes in and the team succeeds, I'm going to take my money as a bet on the generational quarterback over the offensive coordinator 9 times out of 10. And while there are outliers to this equation, Nathaniel Hackett has given me nothing to actually convince me that he is anything other than this archetype of coach that comes from a great head coach and quarterback pairing and is able to use the otherworldly talents of his quarterback to heighten his own profile. Like, there's no reason that Matt Eberflus is outproducing him on a win basis so far this year. It makes no sense. Like, Russell Wilson is 5 times the quarterback of Justin Fields right now. It just does not make sense. And it would be one thing if the Broncos were really efficient on offense and the defense took a step back, but the offense is anemic. Their MVP so far this year is Corliss Whitman, their fucking punter. Like, I cannot make this stuff up. They're getting delay of games at a rampant pace. They don't know what they're doing. He has a guy up in the sky for his, I think it's the analytics department of his team. And he just he isn't able to make any decisions for himself up until this point of his NFL coaching career. And it'd be one thing if it was week 1. We're in week 5. There's 17 weeks in the season, and the Broncos are smack dab in one of the more competitive divisions in football. So there's no time for a learning curve. You just paid Russell Wilson QB1 money to be a guy that's not even competing for a top 10 spot in the league right now. When it rains, it pours, and for Denver right now, they're in the middle of a fucking monsoon, to pardon my French, but it's absolutely insane.
For me, looking at third down efficiency,
it's
Colts
god awful.
4 for 16. The Broncos were 2 for 15.
The one pass I will give the Colts is this is an organization that's been complacent for the last half decade. They lost Andrew Luck and said, well, shit, we have the roster. Let's just find a guy to throw the ball. That's not going to work, especially in the AFC. It might get you to a wild card spot this year or even propel you to win your division if you're lucky. But Jim Irsay is not going to be patient with this. He's already come out about Frank Reich being on a hot seat if they can't figure it out this year. And the one saving grace for them is they're injured. They're beat up. They missed Michael Pittman 1 week. Alec Pierce just came back. Shaquille Leonard has not played a snap so far this season. And Jonathan Taylor just missed his first game since like high school. So the Colts have excuses. Are they good ones? Not at all. This is a team that I thought last year had a shot to win the division. I'm out on the Colts at large this year, but I have more faith in them moving forward than I do in this Broncos unit. And it's not because they're more talented. It's because I trust the coach and I trust the system. There's no system in Denver, and that's the biggest problem. They have no identity, and they realistically have no trust in each other. Everything that has come out of Russell Wilson's mouth so far this season is just proving to me that he doesn't have any like friends in the locker room. And we're seeing it week in and week out with every former Seahawk coming out and talking about Russell Wilson in Seattle and this and that and Pete Carroll's offense. It's not looking good for Denver. And
Smith is having a better year than Russell Wilson.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's in the water up in Seattle or something, but Russ is not helping himself with these nicknames, Mr. Unlimited, his Danger Witch sandwich. Like, no, you haven't been spicy since 2015, Russ. There's a reason why you haven't had an MVP vote your entire career. So let's just cut it. He's not top 5, and arguably was he ever top 5? Because Russ had it really good in Seattle. He had great defenses. Marshawn Lynch was a all-pro running back, and he had talented receivers throughout his career. The only difference now is coaching. Like, I get it. Pete Carroll had his deficiencies while Russell was there, but Russell's been doing diddly nothing since he left Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll's coaching a competent football team. I know it's been 5 weeks, but something has to give, and if Russ is going to continue to play the way that he has, this Broncos team wasted a lot of draft picks moving him, and they're burning cash as we speak.
Yep. Upset of the week? Probably.
The Giants are good, man. The Giants, like, I know they're cousins from across the bridge with the Jets. They share the same stadium in MetLife, but the Jets won the draft, but the Giants weren't too far behind in this year's NFL draft. Getting Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau was paramount to this team's success this year. And Andrew Thomas, he's like the number 1 ranked player in all of football, according to Pro Football Focus this year. They are really good, and I think they got the head coach in this offseason, the way that Brian DeBoer has rallied this team. Because for me, Austin, with the New York Giants right now, everyone's been bitching about the Green Bay Packers, the Tennessee Titans, the Kansas City Chiefs, these teams that don't have their number 1 wide receiver anymore. Daniel Jones is throwing to Richie James and Darius Slayton. Sterling Shepard is out for the year. Kenny Golladay has been out for the last 2 years for all I care. He hasn't suited up for an NFL football team since he cashed out with Detroit. But that's the thing. This is not a pro-caliber receiver room. Kadarius Toney hasn't played since midway point last year. And Wan'Dale Robinson's still on the mend. It's Saquon Barkley against the world right now. And for some reason, Brian DeBoer has made it work. And I'd be talking a lot differently if Green Bay came out and smeared them. And Green Bay has their own problems. But I think it's time we respect the Giants. Do they finish with a record above 500? At this point, yes. Are they a playoff team? I'm not sold on that. But if Saquon's healthy and Daboll's got the reins as the coordinator coach, I would be dumb to bet against them. Daniel Jones has the legs to prolong drives, and he's not throwing picks or turning the ball over to cost them their games. It's ball control, it's running the ball, and it's Graham Gano's cannon of a leg. And the defense has not been hemorrhaging points.
The Giants won time of possession. They didn't turn over the ball. They had less penalty yards. Or they had more penalty yards, but they had less penalties. They were 6 for 11 on third down. They ran 2 less plays, but they only allowed 1 sack. And really the only game they lost this season was when Daniel Jones was running for his life against Dallas. Daniel Jones is basically doing what Cooper Rush is doing, just enough. And that's all he really needs to do. That's always maybe it isn't always what he's always needed to do because he hasn't had Saquon Barkley. But Saquon Barkley is back, 13 carries, 70 yards, a touchdown, adding on 3 catches for 36 yards. He's like you said, he's the only guy left in this offense. This defense is playing pretty good. They got in the face of Aaron Rodgers, and especially on that last drive, they had like 3 batted balls, one to end the game.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers really doesn't know who he's throwing to. How did he even finish? 222 yards with 2 touchdowns. So it's not like he was slinging the rock. They weren't running the ball that much. Aaron Jones got 13 for 63. A.J. Dillon got 6 for 34. So they only ran the ball 19 times out of their 61 plays when it felt like they should have been running the ball more. But, that's neither here nor there. Giants are 4-1. I'm not sure who they play next week, but it's like one of those teams where every time I see them, they're playing. Oh, that's a tough one.
But it's not crazy to think they might actually win a game at home against Baltimore with the way that the season's gone. And that's where I'm at with New York. They've been extremely impressive from what I thought they were going to be this year.
Yeah, and like I was gonna say, like when they go against the Ravens, we're gonna pick against the Giants. Yeah. At least I know I'm going to. I'm gonna pick the Ravens, but we're gonna sit here and be like, if we're back here next week talking about the Giants edging out the Ravens, we're gonna be like, God damn. I mean, Brian Daboll is setting the pace for new head coaches, and he's gonna get dudes fired. He's putting this team at 4-1. Matt Rule's already gone. We'll get to that. Cliff Kingsbury is 2-3. Frank Reich is 3-2 now, but he's not looking very 3-2. No, 2-2-1.
Yep,
2-2-1. So tied with the Texans. So he's not looking good. You can go around the whole freaking league almost and just be like, man, Brian Daboll makes these guys look fucking bad.
Yeah, this thing right now for me, this game is more about the Giants winning it, more so than the Packers losing it, because the Packers put up 20 points in the first half. They were up by 10, and they only mustered 2 points in the fourth quarter, which I'm assuming is off of a safety. The Packers, they look lost to a certain extent. Like, I know you're traveling to London, and it's a long trip for whoever's going to be playing, but there's no reason to put up 2 points against the New York Giants. This is the same team that got rid of James Bradbury this offseason. Their secondary is good, and their front four is pretty damn solid as well, but this isn't an all-league defense. This is not Dallas. This is not San Francisco. And I think they have to address it with the ground game. There's no reason why Aaron Jones has 13 carries. You have a total of 20 total carries for the game. 13 to Jones, 6 for Dillon, 1 to Christian Watson. You're up by 10 at the half. That makes no sense to me. This is a game where effectively it was won because New York controlled the clock. It was a 32-11 to 27-49 in terms of the split, and the Giants ran less total plays than Green Bay. The Giants just were more efficient in the touches that they got, and they kept Green Bay off of the field. And Green Bay is no longer this juggernaut that can be as hyper-efficient as they have been over the last decade plus. Devontae Adams is gone. And Devontae Adams has proven himself to be one of the most efficient red zone players in all of football. So it made Aaron so deadly. It's probably what won him the last 2 MVPs. Aaron was an absolute machine within the 20. But without a guy like Adams, the box gets stacked and Jones and Dillon are going to find a harder time. And he doesn't trust Dobbs or Watson yet. So you're really trusting Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb to get the job done. And that's just not going to do it at this current standing. So I think the Packers should be fine. The Vikings are looking really good moving forward in the division. But Matt LaFleur has some questions he has to answer throughout the next couple of weeks of the season because he has been Green Bay's poster child, and he's lost like 3 games each season of his career so far. He's got a 1-game allowance before he's tied with his career high in losses for a season. So this is going to be...
And they're in second place right now.
Yeah, it's going to be unprecedented territory for not only Rodgers, but LaFleur himself. So it's going to be interesting to see how they react to getting punched in the face this early in the season.
Monday Night Football real quick. Going into halftime, the Raiders up 20-10. Matthew Wright sinked a 59-yarder to get the Chiefs on the board at 10.
Should be 20-13 because Wright shanked one to the right earlier.
Yeah. Did not expect the Raiders to put up 20 in the first half, and the Chiefs only to put up 10. But it's Mahomes, so we got a whole nother half to go. So I'm not really worried about the Chiefs quite yet. But if the Raiders pull this out, divisional games get weird.
Oh yeah.
I don't really have a ton to say about this one. The Lions. It's an out coaching moment for sure of Belichick versus Dan Campbell. The Lions are beaten to hell. Amon-Ra St. Brown barely came off his ankle injury. DeAndre Swift was out. And this team is kind of like how I feel about the Jaguars right now, is that we like them. We like where they are and how they're moving up. But they're still prone to this happening. They're still not a great team. They're still not even a good team at times. And, the Lions have the worst defense in the league. So this doesn't really surprise me as much as I thought it did at first. I don't know. What do you think?
Dan Campbell did his best Breaking Bad Jesse Pinkman impersonation and going, "Science, bitch." He went 0 for 6 on 4th down. I don't know how he expected to even score a point in an NFL football game whenever you're that inefficient. It's a lot easier to play football whenever you're playing against the Swiss cheese capital of the world in Seattle. Bad defense leads to better offense. And they could have had prime Calvin Johnson out there, and I'm sure they would have lost by 14. It was it was terrible decision after terrible decision. And Bill Belichick was playing chess. Well, I don't even think Dan Campbell brought his board to the facilities, because to say he got out-coached would be a mockery to coaching. I love Dan Campbell. I think he's a great motivator of men. I think he's a really solid head coach for what Detroit needs. But this game was just really bad. The yardage discrepancy wasn't that big. It's just they did not put themselves in opportunities to score. It'd be one thing if they had 9 points on 3 field goals, but this is a team that could not get anything going besides their punt unit and a turnover on downs. Bailey Zappi played well enough to keep this team from cratering. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Ramondre Stevenson, may I say it, is that dude. Damian Harris did have to leave the game with an injury. Hate to see it, but whenever Stevenson's averaging 6.4 a carry, Belichick's not going to complain. And then you've got Jacoby Myers finally not being allergic to an end zone with 111 yards and a score. It's New England at home against a team that hemorrhages points to opposing offenses. And they were without their starting running back, and they had just brought back their number 1 receiver. And one thing with Jared Goff that I think we have not talked about enough in the past is a clean pocket for Jared Goff. He's probably a top 10 arm in football. He can find people. He's been responsible for like 3 of the top 10 scoring games in NFL history, dating back over the last 5 years. Jared Goff can put up points if he's not being pressured. But if you get to the quarterback against the Lions, Jared Goff is prone to make mistakes. And he threw 1 interception, but he went 19 for 35 for 229 yards. This was just a game where New England had their duty to get to Jared Goff, and they did it to a T. And Jack Jones made a great play to get that pick off of Jared Goff, but they had the blueprint, and Detroit had no answer for it. So I like the Lions still. They're 1-4, which is genuinely surprising whenever there's a team in Chicago that has 2 or 3 wins at this point. But
2 and 3, I think.
Best 1-4 team in football, I would say, is the Detroit Lions. They have a lot of growing up to do, is the big thing.
Mm-hmm. I'll let you go first because it's your team.
Bolt gang or don't bang. Okay. This game, to be fair, last year Cleveland played the Chargers harder than damn near anybody else, and we won in a shootout. This one felt better for me until the very end. Chargers went down early, and by early I mean really early. It was like 14-0 or 14-3 to start it off. Stormed back in the second quarter, put up 14. The Chargers outplayed the Browns, but they also outplayed themselves a little bit mentally. The final drive for the Chargers, 4th and 1 in our own territory, force-feeding Mike Williams. We had DeAndre Carter on a slant. I personally would have liked to see the team punt the ball. That's just me. And the football gods said, hey, man, you guys traded for Deshaun Watson this offseason, right? And then they were like, yeah, I think we did. And then boom, wide right. I'm not calling it karma, but the Chargers got extremely lucky with the way that ball bounced. Herbert didn't play us out of this game in terms of throwing in a pick 6 or an interception. Not saying Herbert plays us out of games. Most times that we're even on the precipice of winning, it is on the back of Justin Herbert. this game, it's Austin fucking Eckler, dude. Austin Eckler, 16 carries, 773 yards, 10.8 per carry, and a touchdown. He also had 26 yards and a touchdown through the air. Austin Eckler put the team on his back. The Browns, Brissett, threw a pick, threw a touchdown. Nick Chubb did his best impersonation of Austin Eckler. 17 carries, 134 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like, this was a knockdown, drag-out bloodbath, and it came down to just the luck of the wind. It just, whatever happened, happened. As a Chargers fan, I love it whenever Staley can call these fourth down plays and we convert, and it's all hunky-dory happy. I saw the sheet of probabilities in terms of like win probability based upon we get the first down, we don't get the first down, we punt the ball. The numbers were all relatively pretty close, but I do think he flew a little too close to the sun in that play call going for it on 4th and 1 whenever we weren't deep into our own territory. Because, yes, we're playing with our backup kicker. And that backup kicker, mind you, he went 3 for 3. I don't know why. No, we were out of field goal range. But beside the point.
So I did check because I wanted to have the right facts. You were at the Cleveland 28. So you're looking at a 45-yarder. So maybe punting was out of the question. I thought they were back at like the 40. But they were on the Cleveland 28 doing it. I'm kicking the field goal there. The dude is 3 for 3, like you said. It's just,
yeah.
I understand. It's like the argument we've had with John Harbaugh over the past like year of like going for it and doing this and doing that. And John Harbaugh didn't go for it last night. We'll get to that soon. And it won him the game because you have the best kicker in the fucking league. So they're kind of in a different scenario. But this thing is that we've seen this before with Brandon Staley. I'm not going to say it cost you the game against the Chiefs last year, but not taking points eventually adds up. And I'm a take points kind of guy. I know against the Chiefs, you try and put them down. I get it. We won't get into it, but it just feels like one of those things that if it backfired, luckily it didn't, but if it backfires, we're not probably sitting here talking about if Brandon Staley still has a job. I think he sees through the end of the year regardless. It's just that it would put you guys in a bad hole if you lost that game. Being at 2-3 would not have been the business at all. And feeling like you definitely should have won that game because Jacoby Brissett threw an awful pick. I don't know how he didn't see that dude standing in front of Amari Cooper, but it is Jacoby Brissett. He is prone to these bad games and bad moments because he is a backup for a reason. But it just felt so odd to me. And Austin Eckler was destroying the ground game too.
He was insane.
16 carries for 173 yards.
Yeah.
Maybe running it on 4th and 2 is a little too risky, but like if it's working, he's averaging 10 yards a carry.
The biggest thing for me is this game. I'm going to look back on this game probably for the rest of the season because I told you that after KC week 2, this whole stretch post KC is like the meat and potatoes of how we're going to flesh out these wins on the schedule if we want to be a 10-plus win team. They blew it against Jacksonville. They recouped it against Houston. And they, by the grace of God, eked this one out. Because if they come out 2-3 as opposed to 3-2, I'm not as optimistic for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
I'm not out on Brandon Staley by any means. He raises my blood pressure every Sunday. I cannot argue against that. I just think I don't know who's in the analytics department or who's making the decisions. I just think there needs to be consistency because Staley, some games is. Because last year he was hyper aggressive with it, and it worked out a lot of the time. This year he has not been as aggressive, but in this situation he goes, you know what, fuck it, let's go for it. And it's like, I get it, but if we don't get it, we have no shot at points. If we kick the field goal, we have a shot for 3, and if we miss it, we're in the same spot we were going for the first down.
Yeah.
So it's and that's the biggest thing for me too. Going for the field goal in that situation makes more sense for me, especially if you can pin them with a good kick after the 3 points because of the defense that we have. I get it. Bosa is out. J.C. Jackson is a little slower off of his injury, and then Derwin's playing. I guess we benched Adderley this week. The defense is a little banged up, But we paid a lot of money for this defensive unit to show up and win games, which they basically did on that last drive. Obviously, they missed the kick, and that's on Cleveland more so than the Chargers' defense or special teams.
Well, it's funny, too, because I saw, like, during that time, Keenan Allen was tweeting. He was like, what are we doing? And then you see, like, Kyle Van Noy tweet after the game, like, oh, you're going to hold that same energy if we lost or if we win? And I'd be like, I would look at it and be like, yeah, Kyle, I'm going to hold that same fucking energy because I'm tired of it. I'm not even a Chargers fan, and I'm tired of seeing that. If that cost you the game, I would have felt awful for you.
I just think we need a change of, like, play calling in an essence. Like,
yeah.
I don't hate Joe Lombardi. I think he's far too conservative a lot of the time in the way that we call plays. I just, in terms of who's making those calls on the 4th and 1s and algorithms, analytics, there's a place for analytics in every sport. I think it's ignorant to not invest money and time into them. But in the NFL right now, the tried and true is kind of playing it chalk. And we haven't seen a team yet that has fully utilized the analytics to just get that step ahead like the Tampa Bay Rays or even the Guardians have in baseball. So I'm totally fine for it. It works great whenever it works, but it looks absolutely terrible whenever it doesn't. And up until this point, the Chargers have been burnt more than they've actually been praised for it.
Speaking of running the ball, oh my God, this game made me mad.
Trevor Lawrence can't hold on to the football.
True. Trevor Lawrence, I watched about like the second half of this game. I was watching Red Zone, but I did jump in this game specifically multiple times. Trevor Lawrence did not look that great. He went 25 for 47. He was overthrowing. It's bound to happen. It's his second year. He has a lot of development to go through. It's bound to happen. 286, is that an 8? Yeah, it's an 8. 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. But here's where I have the problem. Most of this game is 6-6. Going into half, it's 6-6. The whole third quarter, it's 6-6. There's no reason why Travis Etienne should have only 10 carries. 10 carries for 71 yards. James Robinson had 10 carries for 27 yards. Trevor Lawrence had 4 carries for 29 yards. You were never really in a negative game script. You weren't really playing from behind until the very end. Why does Travis Etienne only have 10 carries when he's shredding one of the worst rush defenses in football? Like, why is Trevor Lawrence throwing the ball 47 times in a 6-6 game? There's no need for it. It makes no sense. And you would think Doug Peterson, a guy in Philly who basically had that kind of, had those kind of running backs and ran the ball a lot, would kind of bring that to Jacksonville. And he has a good dual-headed backfield. Why do they only have 20 carries? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, props to the Texans for having a strong secondary that game and getting the picks when they need them. Like, Davis Mills went 16 for 24, 160 yards, but Dameon Pierce, 26 carries, 99 yards and a touchdown. They lost time of possession. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
The Jaguars in this game kind of just elected to outplay the Texans for a majority of the game in terms of yardage, conversions, total plays. Like, this is a team that punted the ball less than half the time the Texans did for this game, 3-6. They lost the penalty battle and they had more turnovers. So 3 punts and two turnovers equals 5 times the possession changed in favor of the Texans. Dameon Pierce won this game for the Texans. And to be fair, Lovie Smith committed to him and committed to the ground. Peterson was non-committal to really anything of merit in this game, and it cost them. Whenever it's a tie game, 6-6, I don't care how we find the end zone. I just care that we find it at that point. Trevor Lawrence is extremely talented. I think he's still the best quarterback in his draft class. But a week after he had 5 fumbles, I don't think it's the utmost importance to make sure that he's winning you this game. I think making it easier upon him by giving Etienne and Robinson 15 carries a pop, letting them establish the play action, because relying on a second-year quarterback against a improved secondary with Derek Stingley Jr. out there and saying you need to win this game for us isn't doing him any favors. So it's a tough loss for Jacksonville. They're lucky they're in a terrible division. Congratulations to the Texans for their first win on the year. I didn't expect them to do it. I don't expect them to get another one for a while. But
Yeah, seriously.
I think this is more Jacksonville just refusing to enact their will. They kind of just fiddled around for 4 quarters, and like the Jaguars were playing football, but the Texans played their brand of football. And you look at the box score, you can see how it manifested. If you look at the actual stats, you don't think there's a reason as to why the Texans won this game, aside from the fact that they won the turnover battle. Everywhere else besides time of possession, the Jaguars outplayed them. More first downs, better efficiency on third down. They did go for 3 on fourth down, which is surprising for Jacksonville. Doug Peterson probably could have won this game if he just decides to, I don't know, go for a field goal or punt it in some of those scenarios. So I don't know. I feel like Peterson dropped the ball against a team that I feel is far worse than Jacksonville right now.
And they were playing Jacksonville. Like they had that little edge that gives them, and they were beating them in yards per play. It didn't make any sense to me that ETN was carving them up and Robinson wasn't, and the game plan just wasn't give the ball to Travis Etienne. It just if you're down like 13-6 in the third quarter and you're going into the fourth, and like I start to get it, but the Texans didn't score their touchdown till late. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. We should be talking about why the Jaguars won this game with their run game. It really feels like we should be talking about that right now. And the fact that we're not has to be super frustrating for Jaguars fans, because I guarantee you a lot of them were saying the same thing watching the full game.
Yeah.
Speaking of watching the full game, you didn't really need to watch the full game to understand why this makes you mad. Brady gets sacked by Grady Jarrett on third down to make it fourth down. Nope. Roughing the passer. Why? I don't know. People want to talk about makeup calls for defensive pass interference. I'll just be straight. I do not believe makeup calls exist. I just flat out, in this day and age, the way everybody is looked at, umpires, referees, everybody across the board, makeup calls are just not a thing. I just don't see that. I don't think a referee looks and like, oh, I missed that, so I'm going to make another egregious call. I'm not going to put my job in jeopardy even more. They're all in unions and they all have heavy protection, but I just don't think that's a thing. So I'm going to get that out of the way. If you believe that makeup calls are a thing, fucking go for it. Whatever makes you feel better about your team losing, I guess. The Falcons tried to get back in this game, being down 21-0. They were supposed to get the ball back until that turnover, but guess fucking not.
It sucks.
It does.
If you're a Falcons fan, you should start a change.org petition to get that officiating crew just out. They were the same crew that officiated the game, the Raiders versus the Bengals, whenever Tyler Boyd's phantom touchdown helped them go to the Super Bowl. I get it. They had to play 2 more weeks after the fact. But it's Pandora's box. The Bengals don't get that touchdown. That game's far closer, and maybe Daniel Carlson sends them to the Shadow Realm. Officiating sucks right now, especially with that crew. We're in a really weird spot with the NFL with concussions, where we've been protecting quarterbacks for a long time over the last 5 years, and it's getting to a point where it is impossible to hit the quarterback. Grady Jarrett did everything that you would expect of a defensive lineman to do. Whenever he's bringing down the quarterback, he hit him, he wrapped him, and he took him to the ground. Brady threw an absolute hissy. I don't know if it was because Giselle filed for divorce or because he was about to lose another football game. I digress. I don't have that information, but the Bucs should be 2-3, arguably at this point. To be fair, if they have to punt the ball, I don't think Atlanta comes down and beats them. No offense to the Falcons fans in the world, but this is a Falcons team.
Yeah, I think
they put up 15 in the fourth, so anything could have happened.
I think the Bucs can bear down enough to hold Marcus Mariota and the Falcons back, but to not get the chance is what is the biggest problem in this situation.
And for that to be a roughing the passer in this year, 2022, it just felt cheap. It felt like a gimme call to a all-time great quarterback. You were appeasing him.
It just felt like what we're used to at this point. But the problem is it's not consistent across the board. Like, we watch quarterbacks get blasted all the time. And it's like, oh, that's got to be roughing. No. Brady gets spun down and thrown down, no body weight, didn't get slammed down, nothing like that. So why is it a penalty? But then you see guys get their full body weight, and you could say that Tua Tagovailoa got slammed down when he got his concussion.
Where was the flag? That's
No
the
flag.
thing. It was the exact same type of hit, but Brady didn't smack his head on the turf. By nature, it was the exact same hit with a different outcome. But one drew a flag because Tom Brady's the best quarterback to ever live, whereas Tua is just another guy trying to figure it out.
Yep.
Ooh, Kenny Pickett. Welcome to the Shadow Realm.
Can he pick it? No, he can't.
He could huck that thing. 300 plus yards is nothing to shake a stick at. It's just not ideal for your first professional start to come against the man that we love, Austin, Joshua Allen.
I'm just gonna fucking say it. The Steelers got their fucking asses kicked. It's as simple as that. This is the year that Mike Tomlin's going to finish under 500 for the first time. This is the year that they have no idea what's going on. The Steelers are fucked. They have the literal hardest remaining schedule. What are they going to do? This is going to happen pretty freaking often.
Draft CJ Stroud.
Draft CJ Stroud. Could you imagine?
Nah, they need to invest in offensive line. Oh, Kelsey touchdown. Yeah, they need to invest in the offensive line. That's all they can hope for at this point. The Steelers have institutional problems. This is a team that is old. This is a team that is not necessarily inspiring on offense. Their best players are all skill position guys, which is great. But one thing that I've learned throughout time is if you don't have an offensive line, your skill positions don't matter. Yeah. Like it's just the way that it works. If your quarterback's on his back, because this is the thing. The Bengals had a bad offensive line last year, but they had an all-pro level quarterback and one of the best receivers on the planet, Jamar Chase. Deontay Johnson is good, and Kenny Pickett is below average. And they have the worst line in football. So you add all that up, it's just a bad equation. There's no winning with this. There's no winning with this situation in and of the fact whenever they went like 11-0 2 years ago with Big Ben as the quarterback, that worked because Big Ben was washed and cooked. And all he could do was play in the shotgun, get the ball, huck it out quick. He couldn't throw it 15 yards down the field, but he was hyper efficient and able to get the ball out as fast as humanly possible. Pickett can't make those reads. He is a first-year quarterback. It's his first ever start. To expect him to be able to just get it out like that with any precision, it's just disingenuous. The team that the Pittsburgh Steelers had over the last 2 years was serviceable because they had one of the smarter vets in all of the league. Like, I don't like Big Ben personally, but as a football player, he was able to get things done that other people usually weren't able to do. So you mix in no more Big Ben with an offensive line that's been terrible since before Big Ben's elbow said bye-bye. Like this is what we expected out of Pittsburgh. Like, yeah, everybody had the hope like Mike Tomlin can figure it out. And it's not helping that TJ Watt's bicep said goodbye as well. But was it his pec? It doesn't matter. TJ Watt's missing time. The Steelers are dropping.
TJ Watt has said goodbye multiple times. It's a Watt brother thing.
Yeah, and if they were playing somebody else, I'd probably feel a little better about him. Actually, I'd feel worse. This Bills team is the best team in football right now, give or take. The Eagles are the best team in football, quote unquote. But in the AFC, I think it runs through Buffalo at this point. They've been dealing with injuries a little bit. Gabe Davis has been in and out of lineups. If he was on your bench in fantasy this week, just don't look. Just set your lineups for next week because 3 catches, 171 yards, and 2 scores is disgusting. And pair that with Stephon Diggs going for 102 and a touchdown. The Bills are as unstoppable as it gets right now. They are a well-oiled machine, and whenever Singletary and James Cook are averaging 7 yards a carry, good luck. Because Allen wasn't just a DeBoer product. Sean McDermott is not just a product of Josh Allen. This is a team that not only was good last year, but got better in the offseason. And they have nowhere to go but up. I think Jordan Poyer is out due to an injury. Tre'Davious White still has not returned. This secondary is beat up, and they are going to get better as the season goes on. So if you sold stock in the Bills after their last loss, or if they lost to Miami, you shouldn't have sold off because they can lose any given Sunday. but
Yeah.
I'll take them most Sundays over any other because they just seem like airtight. It's any holes they had last year, they've shored up, and any holes they have currently should shore up as they get healthier. Teddy Bridgewater, welcome to the concussion protocol. Man, feels bad for the Dolphins
You
fans.
are the next contestant on how many fingers am I holding up?
I feel bad for the Dolphins because
I don't.
Tua got hoed by the concussion protocol, allowing him to go back into the game against the Bills, which won them a game. So they could be like 2-3 right now. But the protocol got changed because Tua had a second head injury within 4 days, which is a terrible look for the NFL. And now, due to these circumstances, anytime a player is like having to be seen or they have lost stability of their legs or anything like that, they cannot return to the game. That is the new protocol. Sight unseen. That happens. Sorry, you can't come back in. And it happened to Bridgewater. And it's tough. As a person that rosters Jalen Waddle almost everywhere in fantasy, it's tough.
Yeah.
This Dolphins team.
I mean,
go ahead.
Skylar Thompson did what he could. He went 19 for 33 at $166 and an interception. This Jets team is good. I do like this Jets team a lot. Like we said, they won the draft and they have a lot of development to do, but they're 3-2. Don't look now, but Zach Wilson didn't have to do a whole lot. 14 for 21, 210 yards. It was the Breece Hall show. It really was. 18 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown. Michael Carter found the end zone twice. Breece Hall had 2 receptions for 100 yards. I'm pretty sure they had a pick 6, or was it a fumble return for 6, if I remember right.
They had a safety to start the game, too, with Sauce Gardner.
And they had a safety to start the game.
The play that knocked out Teddy. It was one play into the game, and he was gone. My thing with the Jets right now is I don't love Zach Wilson. Never really have. I've called him Mormon Manziel since the day he was drafted. But I digress. Breece Hall is the truth, man. Michael Carter got 2 scores, but that was because Breece Hall took him to 1 twice.
Hey, I won't accept any slander for Giselle's new boyfriend, okay?
Oh, God. But no, Breece Hall has officially arrived. Everybody was in love with him in the pre-draft process, and everybody in fantasy said he is the dynasty running back 2 or 3 behind like Taylor and Swift. And need I say more? Almost 200 scrimmage yards in his 5th game of his career, and he's only increasing his usage. As long as Zach Wilson cannot turn the ball over and this rushing attack can play like this and the defense doesn't hemorrhage 30 points, the Jets aren't a bad football team. The bones of it were laid out whenever the NFL draft happened. They cleaned out the NFL draft. They got everybody they wanted. Sauce Gardner, like you name it. Everything went their way. Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson. Stop if you need to hear more. The Jets set themselves up to be more competitive this year than they've been over the last 4.
And they got the pass rusher.
Jermaine Johnson.
Thank you. I kept wanting to say Quinnen Williams, but I knew that was wrong.
And Quinnen Williams is one of the best D tackles in football.
Yeah.
He trucked Tyreek Hill into a walking boot. Like, what are we talking about? This Jets team, while I don't expect them to push for a playoff spot, they are just as good as most of the teams in their division, not named the Bills.
Yeah. For the Dolphins, they just got to get healthy if they want to compete. Not sure who they play next week. We'll get to that soon. But they just need to get healthy. They're beat up. It's no excuse. It's what we put up with all year. You want to say the Bills were beat up, so the Dolphins beat them, and now you want to say the Jets beat the Dolphins because they were beat up. It's the game that we play all fucking year long. Yeah.
The thing with the Dolphins, it's one thing whenever you have a talented team. The Dolphins do have a really weird mix of depth, and anytime you're playing your third-string quarterback, I don't expect you to win a football game. It's just difficult for the Dolphins. I think they should still be set up to push for a wild card as long as Tua can come back in the next 2 weeks. But if Tua's not going to be back for the foreseeable future, I think this team is going to have less than a fighter's chance at a playoff spot because the upside was baked in with Tua. Tua has a connection to both of these top receivers in a way that I don't think Teddy has. And if Xavier Howard's going to be banged up and Byron Jones still can't take the field, Melvin Ingram could be the defensive player of the year, and I don't think their secondary is going to be enough to compete at the top level.
Yeah. The result we expected. Maybe not as close, but it's the result we expected. The The Bears are playing much better than I think everybody, including me, thought they would. Justin Fields threw the ball 21 times, so we like that. Threw for 208 yards and a touchdown. Carried the ball for 8 times for 47 yards. Almost took it to the house, except for a holding call, unfortunately. Brought it back.
Yeah.
David Montgomery was his favorite target. 4 catches for 62 yards, so it's good to see David Montgomery back. But it was the Justin Jefferson show. 12 catches, 154 yards. Like what? Dalvin Cook ran in for 2 touchdowns, so Dalvin Cook is back. The literal first week I traded him in fantasy. It's for a rebuild, but still, he was been kind of met all year, and then Dalvin Cook just takes 2 to the house. Even Justin Jefferson threw a pass for 23 yards. Kirk Cousins, 296, a touchdown, a pick. It's the result we expected. The shout out to the Vikings. They're 4-1 now. They lead their division. They have to keep pace with the Packers, and now they're outpacing the Packers currently after they lost to the Giants. And I don't think the Vikings would lose to the Giants. They could, but I think the Vikings are the better team in the division right now, and they're playing like it, and they have the easier schedule. So if you can just keep feeding the ball to Justin Jefferson, it's a pretty good fucking game plan.
This is honestly, this game was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be, but this is how I expected this Kevin O'Connell-led Vikings team to behave in the regular season. They are as talented offensively as most teams in the NFC. I don't care what you feel about Kirk Cousins, but if he's playing before 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or even Pacific Standard Time, I have faith in the guy that he can put up some serious numbers. Justin Jefferson is arguably the best receiver on the planet. Dalvin Cook is in that top 5 of the best backs in football. Cairo Santos, get your game ball for the Bears. 3 for 3. 51 was the long on this game. 10 points total to him. This game shouldn't have been as close as it was. The Vikings out-earned them in total yards by almost 200, almost 150. Almost doubled the passing yards, give or take. Rushing yards, they still beat them out. Yards per play, it was even at 5.8. They dominated time of possession at 36-44. They lost out to penalties and they had less punts, allowed less sacks. They were tied in the turnover battle. Craziest thing for me, Bears went 1 for 1 on 4th down, but the Vikings were 12 for 15 on 3rd, which is insane efficiency. If I would have read this and just looked at the stats, I would have thought they would have put up 40 to 50 points, going 12 for 15 on 3rd down. The Vikings did what they had to do. They got to win against a team that has been really outplaying themselves week in and week out in the Bears. But the Bears have to get serious about Justin Fields throwing the ball if they want to compete with a lot of these good to great offensive teams. 21 passing attempts was Kirk Cousins attempted double the passing attempts than Justin Fields did. And that's just, if you want to win an NFL football game, you have to be able to air it out.
I mean, as much as the Vikings are better than the Bears, I think we can just easily say that Kevin O'Connell is probably just a better head coach than Matt Eberflus.
No, I do think the Bears are far less talented than the Vikings, especially offensively. Defensively, the teams are pretty similar, but I do think that what the Vikings have on offense is we're talking
Justin Jefferson versus Darnell Mooney, but I think
even Cousins
Fields. Yeah, and the Kevin O'Connell offense is just what this Vikings team needed.
Yeah. I would totally agree with Kevin O'Connell being a better coach than what Mike Zimmer was, because that's the whole point of what's made this change good. Yeah. But I'm not going to fault Eberflus for losing to the best team in their division by 7 points. I thought they were going to lose by 14. So having it be a 1-score game, Eberflus is impressive.
And they were pushing too until I don't know who fumbled it, but it was them trying to make a play. It was that person trying to make a play instead of going out of bounds, which I thought was wrong. But also the Vikings dominated time of possession, 36 minutes to 23 minutes. So,
and we're talking about the Bears who have gone through this season with a myriad of injuries. David Montgomery missed 2 games. That can't be understated. They're not they're operating in a limited capacity in terms of the actual talent they have. And the talent that they do have is limited on the grand scale of NFL offenses. So 2-3, color me surprised. This Bears team has been a breath of fresh air. Speaking
Another
of fresh
result
air,
we expect. Speaking of fresh air, Derrick Henry did his thing.
Somebody get Ron Rivera some fresh air because, man, he can't buy a win right now.
Dan Snyder's not buying wins ever in his entire life. Is he going to buy a win? That would require him to be a decent human being. But Derrick Henry did what he was supposed to do: 28 carries, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Commanders were in this game the whole entire way, and the only thing that lost them the game was a interception on the 2. So they were right there ready to score a touchdown and try to beat the Commanders. Carson Wentz forces it, gets a bad pick. That's the game. He threw for 359 yards. He's top 5 in passing yards. But it's not enough. Shout out to Brian Robinson for coming back. That's a great story. And Walking Out to Many Men by 50 Cent. That's fucking dope. But they only ran the ball 17 times, and 5 of them were Carson Wentz, which, is never a design play. So did you hear what Ron Rivera said today that everyone's losing their shit about? It's completely pulled out of context.
I get what he's saying. Carson Wentz is an upgrade over whatever Rivera has had, even dating back to his time in Carolina over those last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
Post Cam Newton being the best player in football. I feel terrible for Carson Wentz, not because he's a great person, but because I just think he's gotten a raw deal. He's effectively been Ryan Tannehill over the last couple of years, but with just underachieving teams as opposed to the Titans being an overachieving unit.
I think the biggest thing was that obviously he was drafted. You're always drafted by the team to be the guy, especially in the first round. I don't think he was the guy. Rounder, though.
Carson Wentz went 2nd overall in the draft of Jared Goff.
Did he? Damn.
Yes, and he was going to win. He was going to win the MVP in 2018, 29. Yeah, in 2018 he was on. He was pacing to win the MVP before his knee got blown out against the Rams. Brady won the MVP because Wentz got hurt. His stats were insane.
I forgot he was drafted 2nd overall. It's been so fucking long now. But the thing is, he was drafted for Philadelphia to be the guy. He was the guy for a decent amount of time. They lost his trust in him, and then he was the Colts guy, and now he's supposed to be the Commanders guy. So he keeps going to all these places to be the guy because these two teams are the Colts for sure were ready to go to the playoffs with Carson Wentz. The Commanders probably not so much, but they were looking for literally anything to get them anywhere because Taylor Heineke wasn't going to do it. Yeah. But the thing is, he's gone to these places to be the guy right now, not hey, learn this new system and we'll figure it out as we go. And, maybe next season we'll get there. That's probably the Commander situation now that they're 1-4, but that was not Indianapolis at all.
Carson Wentz is the substitute teacher that took over for a class for what was supposed to be 2 weeks, and the teacher lost their leg. So now it's the entire school year. That is what's happening. That's the 3rd touchdown for Travis Kelce. Sorry, but if you're facing Travis Kelce in fantasy football, may the odds ever be in your favor, which brings the Chiefs to a 24-20 lead. But I digress. Carson Wentz has gotten a raw deal. His whole problem in Philadelphia was turning the ball over and having less than stellar supporting cast at receiver. He went to Indianapolis. He played a very good year. They missed the playoffs by 1 game, and it wasn't his fault the entire team didn't show up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Colts effectively they've done themselves no favors in the same way that Washington has done themselves no favors. Teams that have quarterbacks that play for your team for more than 5 years are better off than teams that are swapping year in and year out. Expecting Carson Wentz to be able to learn a system in half of an offseason just doesn't make sense. And he's playing his ass off proverbially, and it's just unfortunate that he's getting lumped into this. Because I wouldn't call him a bust. I don't think Carson Wentz ever truly busted. I think Carson Wentz got hurt, and his body can't do what it used to do. He was a Division II quarterback, albeit one of the best ones we have seen at North Dakota State University. And before he got hurt, he was really, really good with his legs. But his mechanics were never truly there. And once your athleticism leaves, you have to rely upon the nuts and bolts of everything. And we're seeing it now. If your mechanics aren't where they need to be, you're going to find out just how good you really are. Cite Baker Mayfield. Cite whoever you want throughout the history of football. Once the athleticism leaves, you have to rely upon things that everybody can have. It's kind of why Vic actually worked in Philadelphia for that stint of time, because in Atlanta, he was absolutely transcendent with his legs. But whenever he hit Philadelphia, he knew he needed to actually be a pocket passer, and he was able to do that. I don't know if Carson Wentz at this point in his career and at this point in his own mechanics is built to be a pocket passer, and he has to be.
Yeah, and he just doesn't. I mean, he has okay weapons. He's got Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel. He threw 2 touchdowns.
It's the best.
De'Ami Brown.
It's the best group of weapons he's had since he was like in Philadelphia before his knee went out.
Yeah,
like McLaurin's like on the same par as that prime Alshon Jeffrey he was tossing it up to in 2018. Gibson is talented. Ron Rivera freaking hates him. Curtis Samuel, Weapon X, Rivera loved him in Carolina. I loved Curtis Samuel going to this team. We just lost him for a full year last year. Jahan Dotson didn't play this game, which sucks for Wentz because he's kind of his favorite target through the air.
Yeah.
Which De'Ami Brown filled in for the Jahan Dotson role. And it's not helpful. The Commanders have one of the worst defenses in football. They went from a couple years back having one of the better defenses in the NFC East to just getting absolutely lambasted with injuries over the last 2 years and not being able to field a competent NFL unit. And shout out Derrick Henry for just being Derrick Henry.
That too. Death. Taxes.
Taysom Hill.
Vulture touchdowns. 9
Dennis
carries. 112 yards. Not 1. Not 2. 3 rushing touchdowns. To add to that, you got a passing touchdown. What the fuck? I thought this shit was over. I thought we were done with this. Sean Payton left. I thought we were done. We were all giving Sean Payton shit about Taysom Hill when the whole time it was Dennis Allen's fault. And it's always been Dennis Allen's fault. It's like the Vince McMahon gif when he pulls off the hood and goes, "It was me, Austin. It was me all along." That's Dennis Allen.
Taysom Hill wants to be Taysom Hill is who Zach Wilson wants to be whenever he grows up. Both former BYU quarterbacks, both known for their rushing ability. As Zach Wilson scored a touchdown on the ground this week, the Taysom Hill thing, it's not as bad as the Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He can't keep getting away with it. Shit I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. Taysom Hill is the ultimate. He's the ultimate football striptease. If you have a fantasy team, do not pick him up. This is not sustainable. 12 yards a carry for a 32-year-old white guy just isn't something that I'm expecting to, trend. It's not like Peyton Hillis back in 2011. He can't do this for a full season. Dennis Allen can call Taysom's card at once every 3 weeks. He's kind of like that one card in a Yu-Gi-Oh deck where it's like, I summon Taysom Hill, which allows me to summon 3 Taysom Hills. It's weird. I don't understand how it works. I think Taysom Hill has some witchcraft going on. Maybe some voodoo magic, but city of New Orleans is thankful for having him because, man, the Mormon muscle hamsters showed out. Geno Smith, speaking of showing out, he actually had. Though,
if he's on your waivers, if Taysom Hill's on your waivers, fucking leave him there. Don't do it. However tempting it is, don't do it. I don't put up 0 next week.
I don't expect because he's designated as a tight end, which is the most insane part because tight end is such a crapshoot. The thing about it is, give him the mandatory flex. You cannot play him at running back, tight end, or anywhere besides the flex spot. If that's how Taysom Hill is going to be used, just designate him as the flex, and you can only play him at the flex spot. Because of Cordero Patterson, I wish he was a running back or a wide receiver because that's what he was for the majority of his career.
Yeah,
but yeah, Taysom Hill is just. You can roster him, but if you're starting him week to week, you will have 1 out of 6 weeks where he pops, and 5 out of 6 weeks where you lose. Geno Smith actually had the chance to be the first Seahawks quarterback in the history of the franchise to throw for 3 straight 300-yard games. I really wanted him to hit that number because
can you repeat that for me?
the first quarterback in Seahawks history to throw for 300-plus yards in 3 straight games. He had that opportunity. He only threw for 268. But Geno Smith, yes, that Geno Smith, first-round draft pick of the New York Jets, exiled to go play wherever he's been. He's the starter. Drew Lock feels bad for you. At least you can lip sync some rap lyrics on the sidelines while Josh Jacobs is breaking that off. Wow. I digress. Geno Smith has been a breath of fresh air for Seattle, and they're right by the coast, so you know the air is always fresh. 3 touchdowns. Rashad Penny, prayers up, broke his tibia or his fibula, so he's going to be out for the year. That's rather unfortunate for a guy that really it's been 1 step forward, 2 steps back for this guy since he got drafted. He's a great talent, and he's a really hard runner, but he can't stay healthy. If Kenneth Walker's on waivers, pick him up, spend your fab. Hopefully you have the number 1 waiver priority because he is going to be the bell cow in this offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what you're saying. How could he be the bell cow? He had 8 carries. Well, Taysom Hill had 12, and or he had 9. So he's on the same pace as Taysom Hill. No, but Kenneth Walker is poised to be an impact player in this offense because
though, if you take away his 1 big run, he was basically dog shit. So,
well, if you take away Jamar Chase's elite speed and separation, he's just TJ Husmanzada today. You can't.
I mean, if you take away Travis Kelce's 3 touchdowns, he has 20 yards. So
if you take away Patrick Mahomes' deep ball, he's just Jay Cutler. No shit. The traits that players possess and the stats they put up are intricate to who they are. If you take things away, they're not that
Mahomes didn't have a right arm, he would not be a good quarterback.
Tyler Lockett is quarterback proof. As much as we like to joke about, we thought that Russ made Lockett, Lockett made Russ. The signs were always there. DK Metcalf, Geno Smith loves him. Noah Fant and Will Dissly, as frustrating as ever. This was just kind of like whoever gets the ball last. It was a shootout. It was a shootout of all shootouts, and it's really weird that Taysom Hill won this game because it was literally – so 2 touchdowns were thrown. Olave caught 1, Troutman caught 1, and then Taysom Hill said, hey, guys, get on my back because holy smokes, it is just mind-boggling. The Seahawks are going to look back on this one and thank the Saints for beating them because I think the Seahawks will be much better off getting a high draft pick than the Saints are because the New Orleans Saints aren't even playing for their own pick. That thing's going directly to the Philadelphia Eagles in the offseason. So probably the best game of the week in terms of entertainment value. This game was fun as hell to watch.
Yeah. Okay, so
the least entertaining game in football.
So real quick, I'm just going to get the Niners out of the way. They did what they were supposed to do. They did lose their quarterback. I can't remember his name. It's escaping me all
Emmanuel Mosley.
Yeah, Mosley, I think, is out for the year now.
ACL. Jimmy Ward broke his hand.
Nick Bosa has a pulled groin. So this defense is taking hits, but they did their job against, obviously, a bad defense. We did it. We did. The Matt Rule era is over. And if you watch a short I made earlier today, I believe that this is the start of a new beginning. I don't know who or if anybody's going to be traded, but now's the time. I believe that next year for the Panthers, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, or Will Dressed, can't remember his name now, the Kentucky quarterback. Will something. Let me see.
I'll look it up.
Will Levis.
Levi's.
Should be Levi's. Levi Strauss. Redacted.
No sponsor.
One of those 3 should be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers next year because the Carolina Panthers should own a top 3 pick. There should be no reason why they're going to win any more games moving forward. Maybe be 2 or 3. I think the Texans are going to be worst. So it might, push the Panthers to 2 or 3. And the Texans are obviously probably going to take a quarterback. And I think so far, especially with Bryce Young's injury, CJ Stroud is the guy right now that will go at number 1. But I don't think Bryce Young is a bad pick at 2 anyways.
I don't know if I don't know. I don't know if the Texans go quarterback. I'm not the highest on Davis Mills, but the Texans have a lot of holes on that roster to where I would not be surprised if they took that pick and traded down. Just
But
because
didn't they have a shit ton of holes when they drafted Watson anyways? I'm not comparing
CJ
Deshaun
Stroud
Watson.
isn't going to be the only reason Deshaun Watson worked is because they got him outside of the top 10. He fell. I don't think you get the value
Right, but
drafting.
what I'm saying is he was so talented, the holes were pretty irrelevant. And that I'm not I'm saying I'm not comparing CJ Stroud to what Deshaun Watson was at the time he was drafted. And I don't know what the 2024 draft looks like, but I feel like it's got to be now. Davis Mills, we know, is not the guy. Like you said, they do have holes, and I would, we'll do our mock draft next year and we'll see what it looks like. But I don't really see the guy at number one that isn't a quarterback. Like that should change their dynamic to win a couple more games and then start to fill more holes, or maybe fill holes through free agency. But
what we will see if Lovie Smith is the head coach going into the 2023-2024 NFL season, they will not be drafting a quarterback. Mark my words. Because Lovie Smith will be there for this team to lose. It's just the way that it works. Bad teams tend to have a coach that is there that will not last throughout the tenure that they rightfully probably deserve.
But anyways, this is about the Panthers. Went a little off track, but it happens. Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Brian Burns, Derek Brown. A lot of these guys are hot commodities that people are willing to pay for. We heard a report today that the Bills are interested in Christian McCaffrey. Guarantee you plenty of guys are interested in DJ Moore. Guarantee you plenty of teams are interested in Robbie Anderson. Probably not as many as DJ Moore, but teams could use Derek Brown. Teams could use Brian Burns. This is probably the start of a giant teardown, because that is what has to happen for the Carolina Panthers, because Baker Mayfield ain't it. We already know that. We're done with this. Sam Darnold's not the dude. PJ Walker's not the dude. Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen wasn't the dude either, but the second company that came in wasn't the guy. It's time to now go get one of those guys in the draft and be bad. This has to be the start for the Panthers.
I don't know if we're going to a full-scale rebuild. I do think some of the pieces could get moved. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to be on the trade table just because of how much he makes at the running back position. But I would be very surprised if DJ Moore got moved, because this deal, looking at it in the grand scheme of wide receivers, is a good value for his talent. DJ Moore is one of probably the top 15 receivers in football right now. And there's one thing that I can guarantee you in terms of the development of a young quarterback is giving them a quality wide receiver. It's why Davis Mills looked better than Trevor Lawrence last year. If you surround a talented quarterback with actual talent, they're going to be able to put up numbers and give you a better chance to win. Justin Herbert has Keenan Allen. Patrick Mahomes had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Joe Burrow had T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Granted, Davis Mills.
Let's be fair. Justin Herbert does not have Keenan Allen.
Not right now. But
you don't even have Keenan Allen.
Young quarterbacks surrounded with excellent talent prosper. Dak Prescott, Des Bryant. You look throughout history. Young quarterbacks flourish whenever the talent is already around them. So if they're in the sweepstakes for CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, there's no reason, because they are going to be bad enough to have a shot to get one of those guys without moving any draft capital. And why would I? Because the Panthers are not that far away. The Panthers were light years away with Matt Rule as the head coach. That's my biggest problem. I think the roster construction is.
We said for 2 or 3 years they were a quarterback away. A healthy Christian McCaffrey and a good quarterback.
They still are, and that's the biggest thing for me. I think this team bottom out this year. Bottom out. If you have McCaffrey in fantasy, obviously you don't want to see him miss games. Protect your players, protect your assets. Tank. Tanking is not approved of by the NFL, but the Panthers have nothing to gain from winning this year. They have everything to gain from losing this year. And because my thing is, if the Texans, CJ Stroud is in a better situation playing for Carolina than he would be playing for Houston. And I don't 100%. Think that's hyperbole. So even if you trade some of the pieces, I think McCaffrey and DJ Moore are staying. They already got, did they get Ekwonu in the draft this year?
I don't remember who they drafted.
They already drafted their left tackle of the future. Their offensive line isn't complete garbage. J.C. Horn is one of the best young corners in football right now.
Love J.C.
He's been transcended. They still have C.J. Henderson from that deal last year. This defense has the bones to be extremely impressive. And yes, they just allowed 37 to the San Francisco 49ers, but the offense couldn't stay on the field to save their life. But whenever you've got freaking Shaq Thompson, Derek Brown, Dante Jackson, Yetur Gross-Matos, like this is a really, really good defense that if they were able to actually control the ball on offense, they could be competing for at least a wild card or even with a banged up Tampa Bay for the NFC South.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just the coaching and the offense. Because the stat that really opens people's eyes, and genuinely I've noticed since the start of the Matt Rule era, in games where their opponent has scored 17 or more points, he was 1-27. The Chicago Bears are averaging
24 straight.
The Chicago Bears were averaging 17 points a game this year. That's the problem. Yes, and with the talent they have had, they should have been able to score at least 15 to 20 points per game. So, happy trails, Matt. I wish I bet money for you to be the first coach fired. State of California, no sports betting. So you're lucky I didn't make any money off of this. But anybody that did,
hammered that. I would have hammered that if I could have.
Matt Rule should have been first coach fired the last 2 years. So,
yeah, pretty much. Eagles, Cardinals. The Eagles did what they were supposed to do, but shout out to the Cardinals defense for stepping up and keeping them in the game. The Cardinals basically forced overtime, but didn't. Kyler Murray just slid down a little bit too early, and it cost them as he had to spike it and turned into a 44-yarder, I think, 48-yarder for Matt Amendola, and he went wide right. Man, that's a tongue twister at times. Cliff Kingsbury is 2-3. Should be 5-0 the way you think Cliff Kingsbury plays in the first half. It was double XP weekend for Call of Duty, so maybe Kyler Murray's head just wasn't in it. Happens to the best of us, honestly. But let's look at Kyler's stats. 28 for 42, 250, a touchdown and a pick. James Conner got knocked out of this game. Darrell Williams got knocked out of this game. Kyler rushed for 42 yards on 4 carries. Marquise Brown, 8 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. Granted, they do play the Seahawks next week, and I think they can beat the Seahawks at 3-3. They get D-Hop back, and that's a huge improvement for this offense. But it just feels like Cliff Kingsbury, like Zach Taylor when we get to Zach Taylor, is just holding the team back just a little bit. And they keep losing games by just a little bit. They could have beaten the Eagles team. They could have won this game. There was no reason why the Eagles could not be 4-1 right now. But they blew it. And it just feels like they're always one step behind their opponent, even when they win games. Like the comeback against the Raiders, they always were behind the Raiders. And then they get a fumble reception in overtime. It just feels like there's something missing. And I think it's obvious that it's a head coach, a competent head coach. Granted, I want to go to Cliff Kingsbury's house and hang out. That shit looks super dope.
Yeah.
But
Cliff,
but that's about it.
Party. Yeah, 100%. Big thing for me and this team. Cliff's the problem for sure. It's Kyler can't be the problem at this point for the Cardinals because they just paid him $230 million, most of it guaranteed. That's just how this works. I think Kyler Murray is extremely talented. He went first overall in 2 sports, which is unheard of. He is an absolutely insane athlete, but I'm not convinced on how good he can make a team by himself. The best record in his career is 9-5. Went 8-8 the year prior. He's never thrown for over 4,000 yards. He's never eclipsed 30-plus touchdowns in a year through the air, and that's kind of important whenever it comes to winning football games. Granted, the Cardinals have not done a whole lot to actually help him throughout the first 4 years of his career, especially defensively. The team is usually banged up. The team is usually playing from behind, and that's not conducive to winning a lot of football games. So I love Kyler. I think Kyler's one of the top 5 most talented players in football in terms of the quarterback position. But I do think Arizona's at a crossroads. Their money's locked up in him, and I don't know if he is at current stature, a great enough player to do what Lamar does for the Ravens. And to be fair, Lamar's situation is better than the Cardinals have for Kyler. And maybe D-Hop comes back and their offense takes a step up. That totally could happen. But with Connor going down, with all these other ticky-tack injuries, and J.J. Watt playing 4 games a year, it's just difficult to truly see the Cardinals as a contender. Even last year, I thought they were more pretender than contender because they're just not built to withstand any sizable playoff run. They're very talented at their spots. They do not have the depth to truly compete. And that's maybe not Cliff's fault, but I don't know. I think the writing's on the wall. I think they're going to keep him around for the end of this year, but if they don't make the playoffs, I think you have to have an honest conversation. Hell, he let Kyler call plays in the preseason, and the team was more efficient whenever he was behind the clipboard. It's Cliff feels like a fad. For all the crap I talk about Nathaniel Hackett, the same stuff applies to a Cliff Kingsbury. Like hotshot offensive guru that never did anything at the pro level or had this great talent because Mahomes was his quarterback, I believe, whenever he was the head coach at Texas Tech, right?
Mahomes and Kingsbury, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly my point. It's like, yes, anybody can look great whenever you have the transcendent quarterback of a generation. And that's the biggest point. How about them Cowboys?
How about that Cowboys defense?
You go for it, buddy.
I picked against them. I felt wrong doing it after watching Monday Night Football, but I'm not going to pivot in the middle of the week after I'd already recorded. I stuck with my pick, and the Cowboys beat the fuck out of the Rams physically. They beat Matthew Stafford's ass. And I'm just going to preface this with this. If you think Cooper Rush should start over Dak Prescott when Dak Prescott is healthy, turn the video off, go outside, get some air, think about it a little bit, and then come back. That'll be your homework because obviously you're just dumb. You're just dumb. Cooper Rush went 10 for 16 and 102 yards. 10 for 16, 102 yards. No touchdowns. No picks. Cooper Rush, I said it last week, is just enough. If Tony Romo had this defense, we would have seen an NFC championship game. I don't know if we're Super Bowl champions. I don't know if we're NFC champions. But we have some playoff wins. I wish Tony Romo didn't have to put up 35 points a game. Cooper Rush had to put up 11 if he needed to win this game. And he didn't. Tony Pollard shredded that defense for a touchdown. DeMarcus Lawrence took it for a touchdown. Those 2 touchdowns right there are that's it. That's all they needed. They'd win 14-10. That's it. The game's over. Cooper Rush wouldn't have to do anything else. The game is called differently with Cooper Rush behind the line and at quarterback with Kellen Moore. It's just called flat differently. If you think at any point that Dak Prescott should not be the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, you're out of your fucking mind. Yeah. He might lose to the Eagles on Sunday night. The Eagles are a damn good team. They're 5-0 for a reason. Our defense is elite, but it's going to have a hard time holding Jalen Hurts and having a good secondary at the same time. Every team struggles with that. Every team struggles with a running quarterback most of the time. It's going to be a tough task Sunday night, and we might lose. And it might be Dak Prescott's first game back. And the second Dak Prescott loses, what's going to be the theme? Oh, well, Cooper Rush should have been at quarterback. No, I'm not going to go through this. I'm more concerned about the Rams. The Rams look terrible. Awful. Cooper Kupp shredded us for a touchdown. That's really all that happened. You would have never known that Stafford threw for 308 yards. They couldn't run the ball to save their lives. Cam Akers had 13 carries for 33 yards. Darrell Henderson didn't have a single carry. Cooper Kupp had a carry for 4 yards. Brandon Powell had a carry for 1 yard. This team's getting their asses kicked. It's the stretch that they had in the middle of the season when they looked bad, but now it started earlier and it's looked much worse.
I saw somewhere there was a stat for Cam Akers where he has more games in his career where he's averaged a yard or less per carry than he has 100 yards from scrimmage in games for his career. This is a Rams team that won the Super Bowl last year, were far more talented and had a bit more depth. And now they're another year older, down their starting franchise left tackle in Andrew Whitworth. They're missing Von Miller, who is infinitely better than Bobby Wagner currently. Their vertical spacer and Odell is gone. Van Jefferson's still out. Matthew Stafford seems to only look for Cooper Kupp or Tyler Higbee. Allen Robinson has been retroactively an afterthought throughout this entire season in terms of a weapon. This team is just they're not good enough right now, and it's alarming if you're a Rams fan because they paid a lot for this team to come together. And if the window was a year and it's now over for the next 5, how secure is McVay's job? How secure is the GM's job? Because I get it. You're playing, you play to win the game. Yes. But at a certain point, you have to look in the mirror and say at what cost.
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys kicked their ass. Stafford can't seem to beat anybody but himself as of late. He throws more picks than he does touchdowns most weeks, and it's just not getting better. So kudos to the Cowboys defense. They're arguably the most impressive unit in football, aside from the San Francisco 49ers currently. And my condolences once again to anybody playing against Travis Kelce in fantasy. That's number 4.
He just got a 4th touchdown.
4th touchdown.
That's insane.
That is insane. Yeah, the great minds. Back
actually might. I just need to check right now. I'm curious. I was down hard tonight. I need 7 more points from Kelce, and I can make a huge comeback. That's how badly down I was.
Let's hope you can do it.
I can make 2 huge comebacks, maybe. We'll see. If Kelce gets fit.
But my point still remains, Cooper Rush, he's just what they needed. Kellen Moore is a great offensive coordinator whenever he's able to apply himself to an NFL offense. And the Cowboys need to just kind of keep doing what they're doing whenever Dak comes back. Keep it simple, because Dak is talented enough to run a sophisticated NFL offense, but he doesn't have to. You guys have the line, the weapons, and the defense to really just nuts and bolts the hell out of teams until you have to break out the big guns.
Travis Kelce going to get a 2-point conversion as well. Just add on to it. That'd be wild. They don't get the 2, though. All right, last game, and then we'll do predictions and get on out of here, kind of wrap up. You can shit on Zach Taylor really quick if you want. I know that's one of your favorite pastimes.
Okay, the Zach Taylor hate class starts now. Everybody on 1, we're going to breathe in, and then 2, 3, we're going to breathe out. 2, 3. He can't keep getting away with it. This Bengals team is held back infinitely by Zach Taylor. I have never had faith in Zach Taylor. I never will have faith in Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor is a terrible head coach for this football team. I don't have any other arguments besides that. The Ravens got out of this game because Justin Tucker is the best kicker in NFL history. They should already start sizing him for his gold jacket because it's not even close. Whenever you have a guy that you can literally say, okay, cool, 6 seconds left. Justin, come on, bud. Like, it's automatic. Death, taxes, and Justin Tucker from anywhere.
My man literally looked at the crowd and went,
what else did you expect?
He's just done it. He's just done it every
time.
That
the Bengals could have won and should have won multiple times. They had it. Zach Taylor said, NFL Street Volume 2 called. We're going to run that at the 2-yard line. Burrow didn't have a terrible game. He threw a pick. Mixon averaged 5 yards a carry, for crying out loud. Hayden Hurst had a day. Jamar Chase. T. Higgins didn't play outside of the first quarter, which really hurt this team. Good bounce back for the Ravens. A week where Lamar didn't take on the world and win the week for them. The defense showed up in a huge way. And that's what I like to see from this Baltimore unit, which I thought would be one of the better units in all of football coming into this year, just based upon how healthy they should have been coming into the season. The defense showed up. The Ravens didn't do a whole lot to really cost them the game, and that's what mattered. So I'm not fully out on the Bengals in terms of them being hot garbage, but as long as Zach Taylor's the head coach, I'm never going to bet on the upside of this roster. They can win any given week, but to rattle off win after win after win after win, don't bank on it. There are about 5 teams in the NFL per conference that I can bank on winning games because not only do they have positional advantages, but coaching advantages. 7 receptions, 25 yards, 4 touchdowns. And that's all you need to know about this Chiefs-Raiders game. If you guys are wondering, we're watching it right now. Kelce is decimating the
He's
Los
breaking
Angeles
hearts.
Raiders.
He's breaking hearts right now on Monday night. It's not
And
close.
if you're a Chargers fan, this game is showing you why Derwin James is worth every penny of his contract. Because Derwin James tends to put these tight ends in a box. But Travis Kelce is a man among boys having a night. But speaking of having a night, we got to get through to the predictions because it's time for Austin to start having his night.
We had a good week 4. I'm doing the math today and I forgot to bring it. We had an okay week last week, so let's get to it. Commanders, Bears.
Going Commanders just out of pure respect for myself. I just don't think I can bet on the Bears consistently and hope to win anything. So, yeah.
I will also pick the Commanders. What is the over-under that this game is better or worse than the Broncos and the Colts?
It has to be. It just has
you
to
score
be.
one touchdown, you're more exciting than the whole game last week.
Yeah.
It's that easy.
And I don't have to hear Broncos country let's ride afterwards, so it's going to be a more exciting game.
That's dangerous. Ravens, Giants.
Ravens, but if the Giants come out at MetLife and shock the world, Saquon versus the Ravens defense is different. Well, no, the Packers defense is better than the Ravens defense in terms of like on the year, on paper. Give me the Ravens. It's hard to contain Lamar Jackson for 1 week, let alone 2 in a row. I think Lamar might have 4 touchdowns and like 400 all-purpose yards. So good luck, Saquon, because you're going to need a aspirin and an icy hot before this week's over.
Jaguars, Colts.
I'm going to go the Colts for the simple fact that the Jaguars just beat them in Jacksonville, and they have their number whenever they play in Jacksonville, but Frank Reich is like on a super hot seat. Like, yeah, they won last week, but nobody won. It was just somebody had to walk away. So give me the Colts. Trevor Lawrence has been really rough the last couple of weeks, and if Shaquille Leonard finally takes the field, I think it shouldn't be super duper close. And if Taylor's playing as well, I think this game is the Colts to lose.
I'm going Jags. I'm not picking the Colts. I can't do it. They've looked so bad. I know the Broncos defense is good, but Matt Ryan has turned the ball over at an enormous rate. His O-line is terrible. I don't think Jonathan Taylor's going to play. I think his injury is much worse than they're anticipating. Give me the Jags to sweep the season series. Fuck it.
My thing now is just I feel like the Jags have overachieved to a certain extent. Not as much to the extent that the Colts have underachieved, for lack of better terms, but I think we're going to see a leveling in the AFC South especially. I think the top 3 teams are far closer to each other than we want to actually give credit to, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Patriots, Browns.
Browns. Give me the Browns. The Pats had a great week. Bailey Zappi might still be the starting quarterback, which would be better than probably having Mac Jones against this Browns defense. Myles Garrett is back. Jadeveon Clowney is back as well. And Jacoby Brissett shouldn't make as many mistakes against this Patriots defense. And Nicholas Chubb is the best pure runner in football right now. So not only can they control it on the ground, but their defense should be able to get to a rookie quarterback. So I just think the Browns have a clear path to a win.
Yeah, give me the Browns. I think they're just the better team in this situation. Patriots looked really good against the Lions, but the Browns are just a different entity. Bengals, Saints.
Bengals. I think there's going to be a really, really big mass exodus of Joe Burrow fans cheering for the Bengals at this game. He's the pride and joy of LSU. And I don't know. I have a feeling this Saints team is really banged up. Andy Dalton might get his 3rd straight start. And if Taysom Hill goes for 4 touchdowns again, I guess you can butter me up and call me Buttercup. But I think the Bengals win this game. They're a better team and they're healthier. So Zach Taylor sucks, but Dennis Allen pisses me off. So at least I know I should be annoyed with Taylor for like all the wrong reasons. I don't know. The Bengals are too talented to lose to the Saints right now.
Yeah. Bucs, Steelers. I'm also picking the Bengals. If Taysom Hill goes off for 84 touchdowns, then I give up. Bucs, Steelers.
You can go ahead.
It's the Bucs. The Steelers are going to be trying to figure out a lot. I just don't know when they're going to figure out something. They'll put up maybe some okay points against the Bucs, but the Bucs are just the better team, both sides of the ball. They have a better quarterback, better receiving core. They have somewhat of a better defense, and just there's nothing going on for the Steelers right now.
I'm putting Kenny Pickett on a watch list this week because I am scared for his livelihood. This Bucs defense is really good at getting to the quarterback, and the Steelers' offensive line is one of the worst I've seen in a long time. Devontae
Niners,
Adams for
Falcons.
6. Niners, Falcons. Give me the Niners. This Falcons team is plucky. Jimmy Garoppolo pisses me off a lot of the weeks. But Deebo Samuel is that dude. Jeff Wilson Jr. is healthy. This offensive line is banged up. But whenever he's called, George Kittle's one of the better left tackles in football. The Niners know who they are. The Falcons are still trying to figure out what it is they do. Even if Kyle Pitts is back, I expect he's going to get put into a box. The Niners just have the best defense in football. Like they're 1A or 1B with the Cowboys right now. So it's hard for me to bet against this unit whatsoever.
That Adams touchdown did put me out of my misery in Yahoo because it was Kelsey trying to make a comeback against Adams, so that'll finish me off. So now we just gotta hope Mahomes wins it for the podcast. I think another touchdown might do it.
I think my wife just beat you in the other league that you're in.
Fuck.
Yeah, no, Devontae Adams.
The Niners.
Yeah, give me the Niners.
Jets and Packers.
I'm picking the Packers, but man, wouldn't it be nice if
wouldn't it be something?
Wow, Josh McDaniels not getting the 2-point conversion to be down 1 point with 4 minutes left.
What?
Big brain. I don't know if he got it. I'm just on the field. It looks like they're pointing towards.
I mean,
nope. He's down.
I don't know what is the point of that? Like,
hey, it's the Brandon Staleyfication of the NFL. We did it first.
I'm not gonna get into it.
Whatever. Packers beat the Jets. If the Jets win, Zach Wilson, congratulations. Go to your book club. Celebrate.
I'm gonna pick the Packers because they're in Lambeau. I want to pick the Jets because the Packers didn't look super outstanding against the Giants, but in Lambeau, I think Rodgers is just a different entity.
I also think Rodgers didn't have his secret stuff for this London game. It's hard to get contraband across international flights, so he'll have his secret stuff for the Lambeau game.
Vikings, Dolphins.
Vikings. Even if Teddy Bridgewater plays, it's the Vikings. Tua's not coming back this week. Justin Jefferson is probably going to burn whoever is in his path, and if they somehow keep up with him, Dalvin Cook in like the harness is one of the better running backs I've ever seen. And then you got Adam Thielen sniping touchdowns every week. They're going to be hard to keep up with regardless of who Miami puts out there.
I'm also going to pick the Vikings. The Dolphins are just too beat up, and I don't know if they're going to throw Tua back out there. I hope they don't, but we'll see. Panthers, Rams.
Man, I'm all for a loser leaves town type match. So I'm all in favor for after your coach gets fired, you come out and punch the next team you face in the lips. PJ Walker is not the guy to do that. I'm not running it through a brick wall for PJ Walker to beat Matthew Stafford. It's at SoFi. As good as JC Horn has been, Cooper Kupp has been that much better than any other receiver the last 16 months. So even with JC Horn playing out of his mind, being one of the best second-year corners in football, yeah, give me the Rams. Cooper Kupp is a lot to deal with.
Yeah. I'm going to take the Rams too. Cardinals, Seahawks. It's the Cardinals for me. The Seahawks, I think it'll be a war the way Geno Smith is playing, and Arizona's defense isn't outstanding, even though they did stand tall against Philadelphia. But I think it'll be a good war to have up in Seattle. But I think the Cardinals really need this win to be at least 3-3 with DeAndre Hopkins back. I'm picking the Cardinals. I think Geno may be due for a down week for the first time in a little bit, because I'm not saying he's going to suck, but I do think the Cardinals defense has its moments, and I think their secondary is bad because as good as this Seahawks offense has been, their defense has been just as bad. That's the whole point of it. Detroit smoked them in a shootout. The Saints just beat them with Taysom Hill as their only key contributor. I think Kyler can have one of those just nuclear meltdown type days. So, yeah, I'm taking the Cardinals. Bills, Chiefs.
Bills. If this game is any indicator, I'm taking the Bills. It's not anything as a Chargers fan, I'd love for the Chiefs to drop a game. That way the Chargers can hopefully make up a little bit of ground. The Bills are on a different level right now. Mahomes, I think, is maybe a better arm than Josh Allen still. But I do think what the Bills have defensively, pairing that offensively with a healthy Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie coming back, Singletary finding his footing. The only advantage the Chiefs are coming into day of the game is maybe Andy Reid over McDermott. But across the board, I think the Bills are firing at a higher plane than what KC is. And it's a revenge game. They're finally back in Arrowhead after that playoff
revenge game.
It is. True. Like the last time he stepped foot in Arrowhead, Josh Allen did get the chance to try and score. So you think he's going to leave it on the field this time? No. I think the Bills are going to come in with a mentality of like, we cannot lose this game. So this could be the AFC Championship. Okay.
I think the Bills are still a little beat up a bit in the secondary. Jordan Poyer might come back.
Yeah.
Or it's not Jordan. Was it Poyer that was out? He was also saying that like a lot of guys took rest because they weren't playing a team that was not very good. And they're right. I mean, take the game off or whatever. You slaughtered the Steelers. But I think the Chiefs can – obviously, it's going to be a fucking shootout per usual. But I think the Chiefs can pull it out at home.
But if we're going to be honest with ourselves, hear me out. Derek Carr just put up 29 against this defense. And Josh Allen is far better than Derek Carr, and Stephon Diggs is not far worse than Devontae Adams. If they're having this much trouble with Devontae Adams, I think Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs are going to be a mouthful. The game's going to go either way. I think it's going to be like a 4-point game in the end. KC should win. They're at home, and they're effectively, in my opinion, the defending AFC champions with how Cincinnati's came out.
Cowboys, Eagles.
See this. I've been playing catch up all year, all fucking year against you.
You know I'm picking the Cowboys. I will not pick against them anymore. The defense just keeps us in too many games.
After
I think Jalen Hurts could easily put us in the dirt because of how good he is, but
is Dak back?
Let me read his notes. Let's see. Where's his notes on my team?
You give me a healthy Dak Prescott, I'll pick the Cowboys.
Prescott will likely need to practice for a full week before Coach Mike McCarthy inserts him back into the lineup. The quarterback has been out since week 1, blah, 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 blah. There's still no guarantee he'll be an option for week 6. That's all we got.
If Dak Prescott suits up, pencil me in for the Cowboys. If it's Cooper Rush, I just don't see on a volume basis how you keep up with the Eagles. I do think because the thing is, A.J. Brown just had a bad week against the Cardinals secondary. And Trevon Diggs, for all the flack he gets for being a big play corner, he's still a good cornerback, albeit he's not the shutdown coverage guy. He's the make a play, big type play guy. Yeah. Micah Parsons is one of the best edge defenders in football. So if Dak's there, I think they can go point for point. And I think their defense is arguably better than the Eagles' defense, especially up front, not so much in the back four. But Dak suits up, pencil me in for the Cowboys. But if it's Cooper Rush, I'm going the Eagles. And if that's not a fair enough answer, I guess just pencil me in for the Cowboys. Because I do think they have some really, really good momentum in a way that I don't think any other team has, even with the Eagles being 5-0. Because the Cowboys have beat some serious teams.
And we're both picking the Broncos to bounce back on Monday night. All right, good night, everyone.
If this is the get-right game for the Broncos, you might not see me for 2 weeks. This is at SoFi. This is one more week healthier for Herbert. Hopefully Keenan Allen is back. Surtain is the scariest part of this matchup. I don't really care about Chubb and Randy Gregory. Or is it it's Gregory, right?
Mm-hmm. Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory.
And Gregory's been out for a week or so. The only worry for me is the Chargers' offensive line. Beyond that, this offense is better than anything the Broncos have done this year. Our defense is of a similar caliber, and Russ will have to beat us because I don't think Herbert beats us at home against this Broncos team. And if he does, I'll eat crow, but I'm picking the Chargers. This is what they have to do. They have to win games like this to win the division or even shoot for the wild card.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Chargers. I can't pick the Broncos until they look anywhere good whatsoever. So we'll see what next week looks like. I'll remember to bring our predictions, math, and see how we're doing. I know we had a really good week 4, and then we had an okay week 5. Week 5 was a little interesting to say the least, but Matt Rule's gone. We all got what we wanted. Somebody pay Lamar. Somebody fired Cliff Kingsbury. That's all I got.
Matt Rule, happy trails. Enjoy your couch surfing for the next 4 years. He'll be back in college within the next year. Enjoy your checks. You officially earned NFL royalties for the next 4 years. who needs to be a TV actor whenever you can just get fired from a head coaching job. It's probably the best retirement plan anybody can have. But yeah, Ron Rivera, Cliff Kingsbury, come on down. You guys might be next in line. Hell, Nathaniel Hackett, if you can't hack it over the next 5 weeks, you can come on down as well. But if we're done, Austin, I think they're just waiting for the one word. Sweet. Thank you from Austin and I. And be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is a community we're looking to grow. Don't forget to catch us on Sunday mornings. We're going to shoot for 9 a.m. for some start sits. But from Austin and myself to all of you guys, peace.